All right, now we're going to run through quickly here some stories with Mr. Rothman. He served in Foreign Affairs and Defense Appropriations committees while he was in Congress. And let's begin in Europe. Prime Minister Matteo Renzi says he's going to step down. That after a referendum he was backing failed to pass. In short, Renzi wanted to restructure the government. Voters, though, said no. Now the table is set for the anti-establishment party to gain more power. How worried should we be? This is another domino after Brexit. Austria also, far-right candidate seems to be doing very well.
There are some individual aspects that were contributed to the Italian referendum failure, namely that the Senate was going to be appointed and not elected. So that was one reason on the merits why it should have lost. But your overall point is correct. There's tremendous populism in around the world. Why is that? You know, it can't be because living standards have gone up around the world. Disease and hunger have gone down. Opportunities for education around the world have gone up because they have. It's that the working people have been left behind. They've been scared by the influx of millions of immigrants.
But how many dominoes fall where it's not just Brexit, which is freaking people out when it gets fully implemented, but if more and more countries topple, what does Europe look like?
Well, let's take it a day at a time, and let's understand that this is a reaction to lots of new people coming into their circumstances and their economic insecurity, which may or may not change. But the goal should be to share the wealth that is now dividing up between those haves and the have-nots. The have-nots now being working people, that get addressed through education.
Scary echoes with Le Pen in France, some of the elements in Germany we haven't seen for a generation, etc.
You mentioned the Austrian party or the Austrian elections there, and let's not forget our election here, which a lot of people from around the world are looking at as another example that there seems to be this populist anti-elitism that's spreading around the world.
Also anti-immigrant.
Yeah, very much so on the anti-immigrants, and that's sort of been a fixture throughout history. We saw that back in the 20s and 30s in Europe. We see that oftentimes when you wind up in a depressed economy.
And for me, I don't know where the line stops, Jeannie. That's for like the thing. When the people, is it just reaction or is it something ugly?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. These people, they have to stop calling for referendums when they don't know the outcome. I mean, this is a big problem. I mean, come on. And you know, I disagree that this was on the merits. I think when you call for a referendum, people don't know the ins and outs of the constitutional system in Italy. They've had 63 governments in 70 years.
But he was trying
the
to make
unemployment rate is
manageable.
40% for young people. You don't call for a referendum and allow people to voice their discontent broadly on those small issues. He could have passed most of that without calling for a referendum. This guy walked himself out of a job. Let's be honest with it. It's the same thing that happened with Cameron and Brexit.
From Europe to Asia, where Donald Trump has complicated U.S.-China relations with just a single phone call. He spoke with the Taiwanese president last week. It angered China because it considers Taiwan a part of the People's Republic. The U.S. had a one-China policy for decades, going back to Nixon. Here is what the Donald had to say on Twitter, of course. Quote, "Did China ask us if it was okay to devalue their currency, heavily tax our products going into their country, or to build a massive military complex in the middle of the South China Sea? I don't think so." Now, whether this was stagecraft theater or dangerous, Steve, is it all the above?
It is all the above, and there's one other element. About 10 days before Trump's tweet, some Chinese bombers flew over Taiwan. These are bombers that carry nuclear weapons. And this was a signal from Trump to the Chinese to just sort of a brushback pitch, if you will. We have an agreement with China that goes back to Richard Nixon's advance to China in 1972. We needed China as a bulwark against the Soviet Union, but we wanted to stand by our nationalist Chinese on Taiwan. So we said to China, we'll go along with your one China policy, but you must agree never to attack Taiwan. And that agreement has held. Although now there's this there's this tweet from our president-elect. We'll see. It was not necessarily a dangerous thing. It could result in the Chinese getting stronger in the South China Sea, or it could successfully achieve what he wanted, a brushback pitch against the Chinese aggression.
Okay. Then that gives him that there was strategy and thought put into it, and there might have been. But my question to you is, you are in foreign relations. There are some people that have been with him when he's talked, whether it's about the Constitution, he's making up amendments that don't even exist, etc., okay, that he doesn't know what he's talking about. and he's not exactly the most curious guy as to what's going on in the world. Would you be uncomfortable if you were still in Congress that you have somebody in the executive branch that doesn't do their homework?
Yes, but the fact that Donald Trump is tweeting is not the problem, because it's not the manner in which one communicates.
So what is the problem?
The problem is the words he uses when he communicates, because as president, your words can cause wars, certainly can cause markets around the world to go up or go down, and can cause your enemies to reallocate their military assets around the world. So you have to be very careful as president-elect or president, but I'm waiting to see yet whether this was thought out by Trump or not. It was not necessarily a bad thing.
He didn't necessarily pick the wrong enemy, Dominic, either. If you think of in the U.S., pick China as the boogeyman here, and it doesn't seem to hurt.
But I think, Richard, this is an aftermath of how we selected our president. I think that we went for the highlight of the campaign, the entertainment value. Be careful what you wish for, because now we have no diplomatic policy around the world. It's whatever Donald Trump says. It doesn't matter that we've had a rule as it relates to Taiwan and China going back to 1979. He's going to come in because he knows best, and he's going to do what he thinks is best.
Well, I mean, isn't instability bad? Instability in foreign relations and instability in financial markets? And the one thing you want is stability, so that at least you have a rational idea of what a China might do. I mean, doesn't this open Pandora's box to just the possibility of instability?
Well, it depends. If in fact those news reports about the Chinese sending bombers over Taiwan, that was a provocative act. Now, if the U.S. did nothing about it, made no form of protest, this was not a military action. Donald Trump's tweet or the phone call to the Taiwanese president. This was, but it did send a signal to the Chinese. There's a new sheriff in town. For better or worse, I think Obama's done a great job with China. This will ratchet it up a little bit, and you have to respond to aggression.
Steve, let me
you
get
just
to my
don't have
last
to.
one here, so
You
we
just
don't
don't have
lose
to go
time.
to war all the time.
Then we get to Pakistan. Not exactly our BFF here, let alone our greatest ally. Don't forget, Osama bin Laden, that's right. He lived there for years before the U.S. Navy SEALs killed him, and we couldn't trust the Pakistanis when there was finally a mission to kill him. So we went in without telling them. You remember that. When Trump, though, spoke with the prime minister, things must have gone well. Here's how the Pakistanis explained how Trump felt about the PM. Quote, "You're a terrific guy. You're doing amazing work, which is visible in every way. I'm looking forward to seeing you soon. And as I'm talking to you, Prime Minister, I feel I'm talking to a person I have known forever." Okay, Jeannie, why should people care about this?
Well, they should care, number one, because actually Pakistan is an ally of the United States, and we work with them very closely. We depend on them because of where they are located in the world. And so we have given them lots of money so that we could be in and out of there as we wish. And of course, what you have with Donald Trump is you have somebody who, as you said, spoke with the Prime Minister of Pakistan on the one hand and said these claims, and on the other hand has said something else just weeks before. And so you have this incredible uncertainty in the world as to what he means. And what they're talking about now is they're going to have somebody following these phone calls and these tweets to explain what the heck he means and when he means it. Because, you know, to your point about stability, he is a disruptor by nature. And I'm not sure, by the way, he even knows what our policy towards Taiwan or Pakistan has been. And he's not getting the military updates that he needs, the intelligence
and he's
reports
not apparently even reading
on
the
a daily basis.
I get 20 seconds because I'm already over. But to me, if I'm in New Delhi, what am I thinking?
What you're thinking is that Pakistan is strategically important to the United States because have been playing a double game. They support the Taliban terrorists in the federal tribal areas of Pakistan who cause us death and destruction to our forces in Afghanistan and in the Afghani people. But most importantly, because Pakistan has more than 100 nuclear weapons. And we're afraid that if a Pakistani government falls to the Taliban or anyone else, the terrorists will get their hands on more than 100 nuclear weapons, and that will be a potential disaster.
That wouldn't be good. I think we can agree on that much. Okay, coming up next, we come closer to home here, and New Jersey to be exactly. But this is basically a rite of passage that nobody told these guys about. A bitter congressional race has turned even more than that. How the Gottheimer-Garrett battle still isn't over.